Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today we will be talking about an intriguing discovery that was made in Augusta, Georgia in the summer of 1989. Workers involved in the renovation of an aged edifice stumbled upon a deeply unsettling discovery buried within the structure's earthy basement. They discovered countless layers of human bones, consisting of arms, legs, torsos, skulls, and numerous other skeletal fragments, scattered amidst remnants of medical instruments dating back to the 19th century. The workers and subsequent forensic anthropology students who undertook the excavation ultimately unearthed nearly 10,000 distinct human bones and bone fragments from the site. What made this discovery even more disturbing was the fact that these bones were linked to the medical history of Augusta, Georgia. For a period spanning 1835 to 1913, the Grand Brick Building situated at 598 Telfair Street functioned as the Medical College of Georgia, where pupils engaged in cadaver dissection as part of their education. Throughout this era, independent grave robbers and at least one permanent staff member unlawfully exhumed corpses from graveyards and conveyed them to the school's laboratories, where the bodies were soaked in whiskey before being dissected by the students. Following this, some of the remains were transformed into artifacts for the school's anatomical assortment, while others were unceremoniously deposited into the basement and concealed with quicklime to mask the odor. A single individual bore the responsibility for the interred remains in the basement. The Resurrection Man, also known as Grandison Harris, spent over 50 years serving as both a slave and employee, exhuming graves to supply the medical students of Georgia with cadavers. Like his British 18th and 19th century counterparts, Harris was commonly known as a Resurrection Man, even though his official designation at the college was porter and janitor. Harris was a large and formidable Gullah slave who was acquired at an auction in Charleston, South Carolina in 1852 for $700 by Dr. George Madison Newton, Dean of the MCG, and jointly owned by all 7 members of the institution's medical faculty, including Dr. Milton Antony, founder of Medical Academy of Georgia, Dr. Joseph A. Eve, founder of Medical Academy of GA, Dr. Lewis D. Ford, disease expert, Dr. Paul F. Eve, professor of surgery, Dr. Ignatius P. Garvin, professor of anatomy and surgery, Dr. Louis A. Dugas, a surgeon, and Dr. Henry William D. Ford, professor of anatomy. Despite grave robbing and human dissection being illegal in Georgia for most of the 19th century, unless the cadaver was that of an executed criminal, Harris's slave status shielded him from arrest. Furthermore, his employers, who were some of the most respected individuals in the city, were unlikely to face arrest as well. Grandison Harris was a key figure in providing cadavers for the Medical College of Georgia. For over 50 years, he worked as a porter and janitor at the college, and also illegally obtained bodies by robbing graves, hence the name Resurrection Man, which he would then sell to the school for medical purposes. Despite being a slave at the time, Harris was taught to read and write so he could monitor funeral announcements to identify fresh graves. He also memorized flower arrangements on graves to replicate them after his nightly expeditions. His preferred location was Cedar Grove Cemetery, reserved for poor and black residents of Augusta, where he could dig up plain pine coffins without any hindrance. Once he had a body, he would throw it in a sack, load it onto a waiting wagon, and take it to the college, where the bodies were preserved in whiskey and used for dissection by medical students. Although Harris was involved in illegal activities, the students at the Medical College of Georgia had a friendly relationship with him. He became a de facto teaching assistant who helped during dissections, and students felt more comfortable with him than with their professors. The students also played pranks on Harris. Once, 2 students took a corpse from a sack and one of them got inside the sack. Harris went inside of a bar for a refreshment, and when Harris returned, the student pretended to be a corpse and begged for a drink. Harris, annoyed by the prank, left without buying him a drink. After the Civil War, Harris moved to Hamburg, South Carolina, in wants to becoming a judge, but he returned to the college as a full-time employee amid race riots in Hamburg. The students saw his position in the carpetbagger regime as disloyal to the South and began to call him Judge derisively, reminding him of his failed attempt to join the professional class. Harris held a complex position within his community, being simultaneously respected and feared. He had power, possessing the ability to read and write, and had a secure job that allowed him to dress like a proper gentleman. He threw great parties attended by local Black society's elite and was even a member of the influential Colored Knights of Pythias. However, despite his successes, he was not beloved by the Black community, as they were fearful of him, not knowing whose body he would dig up next. In Bones in the Basement, Postmortem Racism in 19th Century Medical Training, retired Urban League Administrator J. Philip Waring stated that Harris was a feared figure because of his grave robbing and the fact that he got away with it. Harris was a liminal figure, straddling the worlds of black and white, respectable and outcast, and the living and dead. In 1887, a law was passed in Georgia that aimed to provide a regular supply of unclaimed bodies to the state's medical schools, which posed a potential threat to Harris's occupation. However, the law failed to produce as many bodies as required, and so Harris continued his work, not only stealing corpses from graves, but also buying cadavers from the poor who had died in prisons, hospitals, and other places. As Harris grew older, his son George gradually took on more of his duties, although George was not as reliable or well-liked as his father. By 1904, the lab had become very unpleasant, emitting a foul odor, and the Board of Health launched an investigation. Inspectors discovered tobacco droppings, dissection scraps, old rags, and a neglected vat full of bones littering the floor. The following year, the university gave Harris a pension and replaced him with his son. In 1908, Harris made a final appearance at the school, giving a lecture to the students on the art of grave robbing. Harris passed away in 1911 from heart disease and was laid to rest at Cedar Grove, the very cemetery he used to plunder. In 1929, all of the cemetery's records were wiped out when the Savannah River flooded, leaving Harris's final resting place a mystery. The bones discovered in the basement, on the other hand, were eventually interred at Cedar Grove in 1998. The grave doesn't bear any names, only a stone memorial that reads, "Known but to God." And that's the story of the Resurrection Man, Grandison Harris, and the discovery of human bones in the basement of the Medical College of Georgia. It's a tragic reminder of the atrocities committed in the name of education and progress, and the role of slavery and racism in American history. Thank you for watching this video, and if you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories like this one. Until next time, stay curious.